resolution. From the date of the assessment resolution until December. Doesn't tell me when is that exactly, when interest and all of this. I heard you talking about probably eliminating the interest, but that was for the previous part, for part A, for the other hearing. So to summarize what I'm saying, I want to thank first for this one minor improvement. Yeah, because the road will bump on and constantly trucks are moving back and forth. Apparently people are doing some construction or working or whatever they're doing, but the road was really chaos. Now, have asphalt but no sidewalk, it's more dangerous, became much more dangerous. Even at least needed to be considered for the resident who can walk their dogs or who can go for a running or for anything, walking at least, or bike ride or so. And I see little kids running with bicycle around under a car. That will call it improvement and you pay $12,000 for that. That is way out of my budget, way too much. And I object like the other gentleman who objected for this cost, and you call it that is benefit. What? Benefit for my property? To pay that much? I'd rather do repair my house where the water comes inside the basement. If I have a choice, I'd rather do this one first. But that is, these are the, in addition, I remember one important thing that I have to say. How about repairing the road in the future? What happened when, because the trucks would become moving back and forth, 2 years from now or 3 years from now, repair, do I still have to pay it? Or who is going to pay it? How come it's going to benefit for 10 years? It has to be real benefits. Otherwise, it is no use. Because if a truck's coming back and forth still, all right, or damage the road, who is going to pay it? I pay it from my pocket to pay 10 grand or something for repairing the road again? What do I get from that? I'm living in Corcoran in that house since 1989. And until then, I thought improvement is going to be at least sidewalk for the people to walk safely. But no conditions. It made it 26 feet wide. I measured it, 26 feet wide in front of my house, if I'm not mistaken, and no sidewalk. That means encourage the car to kill the people. Doing that, my wife last time had to jump on the side because the car drove here. That's not the way you call it improvement. See, these are the parts that need to be addressed. Sidewalk, and down the road, when the road damaged from the trucks, constantly moving back and forth. So many trucks for somebody's building something or making this or whatsoever. And later on, you told me probably the septic tank needed to be changed according to the standard, and this and that and yes. I'm done. Where do I live? Under the ground? It's going to be soon. I'm going to see the grass from underneath. I know that one day. But I don't want it to be pretty soon. I need to pay first before I feel comfortable looking at the grass from underneath. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ibrahim.
Dean, go. Do we have anyone online first, actually?
No one is currently raising their hand. If you are or would be interested in raising your hand for the public hearing, you can do so by pressing *9 or clicking on the raise your hand button under reactions. But as of right now, no one's raising their hand.
Okay.
Dean, are you speaking as a rep from the commission, or are you speaking as a public citizen?
As a public citizen.
Okay.
Dean Jacobs, 20415 Duffney Circle, Corcoran. So having watched this public hearing or open discussion and looking at these issues as a real estate appraiser and as a citizen of the city of Plymouth who went through a street improvement project and went through the special assessment process, just a couple of notes. One, most assuredly, when they went through and put in curb and gutter, which we did not have, we had a paved street, Plymouth, but they also put in then sewer, or not sewer, but storm drain. And I sold my house shortly after those special improvements, and I did get a benefit from it, no doubt about it. It was like $30,000, but that was way back when. In my days as an assessor in Eden Prairie, I had to deal with this all the time. I had a lot of neighborhoods that did not have, they were on dirt roads, they were on paved roads that were poor, and when the utilities went through, as a real estate appraiser, I had to pick those up. And did I recognize the benefit that they went from a paved road or a dirt road to a paved road? Absolutely. And so, but I think part of the discussion that was missed here is that the city, by law, cannot assess more than the contributory value. So the city did everything appropriately. They went out and got an appraisal. And then I understand taking the 90%. You're giving yourself a cushion to make it so that, you know, if you're at 100%, you could always argue, well, you're over. So you give yourself the 10% cushion. I
Wait,
understand.
it's 90% of,
The lower value.
The
Lower.
lowest end of the
Yeah.
value.
Yeah. Well, okay, the 90% of the lowest value. So you give yourself maybe even a greater cushion.
yes.
When you're an assessor and you're assessing properties, you're trying to hit, you know, it used to be 92%. You know, now it's like 95 to 98. They're pushing that limit. But I think when the city puts this argument up, I don't know how much of the appraisal process was shared with these folks. If it wasn't, that might be something. There was obviously a realtor that was here. She opined that she was not going to see a benefit to her property. I might disagree with that. And I certainly would never, you know, fault anybody for the argument that it should be spread equally. But the law is the law, and the folks that want to appeal that, I don't know if they're really aware of what they're getting into. If you go and appeal your property tax assessment from the assessor, you cannot go in there and say, I don't like my taxes. That's not a basis for law for that, and they're going to throw your appeal out at every level. And so I'm curious to know if the city helps them understand that, you know, I would bet that the only way they're going to be successful is they're going to have to go out and get their own appraisal, and they're going to have to challenge that. But it might be a question that I would ask, and I don't need an answer, but what has been missing here is any evidence of to what that contributory value was. People might say, I'm not going to get $14,000 of contributory value added because of this road. Did the city scrutinize the appraiser's estimates? I didn't see the appraisal, and I wouldn't opine on it, but those are maybe some of the other discussion points that need to be brought up, maybe in the staff report. You know, how was that, you know, to help people understand how you got to that point. Because I think right now, a lot of people are misled as to what that really is. And so maybe in future discussions, more emphasis could be directed towards the appraisal process, but then maybe educating people that if you appeal it, maybe here's what, and maybe the city attorney needs to get in on that, but here's what your burden of proof is. And you know, you had 4 people that said they protest and they're going to appeal. If you had 30 in here, you'd have 30 protests. And the benefit to educating people about that burden of proof might save everybody a lot of headache and a lot of cost. So that's all I have.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Dean, could you just clarify one thing for me? I just wanted on the record, you were not associated with any of these assessment valuations, correct, on either of these projects?
Oh, no.
Okay, because you
Yeah.
said you were a Realtor assessor in the past, and then you alluded to that you didn't see the numbers, but I just wanted to make it clear for everybody listening that you had no part of this, so.
No. And-
I know you didn't,
And to
I
correct,
just wanted.
I've never been a Realtor. I
A real
have a
estate
degree.
appraiser, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted it clear so everybody knew out there that you weren't talking on behalf of the city.
Right, absolutely not.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Quick comments on that.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you for bringing that point about the benefits and so on. I think the benefits is more for the city of Corcoran so that they can raise property taxes. They can say, oh, based on your value now, your property taxes have been increased to that amount. And that is probably for them. But for me, I don't see really good that this benefit, what they're talking about, this amount of benefit, justify these kind of improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's no one else online?
No one else is
Uh,
currently raising their hand.
Procedurally to close the public hearing and then.
Yeah, but then I can answer some of the
assessment hearing?
questions.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and make a motion to close the assessment hearing.
Second. Sorry.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to the conversation.
Yeah, so we obviously have one comment here, but a couple different questions. The scope of the project was talked about at great detail, absolutely. Everything, one thing I didn't mention was sidewalks, trails, but the utilities and everything else. To enhance the road section for sidewalk would have, took intense grading to create a flat surface or sidewalk, and it would have required property acquisition. So it would have certainly raised the assessments to the highest of the high level, and the project would have probably doubled or more in cost. So I don't know if that's a fair comment, Kevin, regarding the sidewalk cost specifically.
Yeah, it would have changed the scope of the project a lot, for sure. Hard to know, hypothetically, but certainly it's a more significant project without a doubt.
Yeah, and then the other question I think was regarding when the payment deadline is, as was mentioned and read, it's 30 days from the adoption of the assessment resolution. That's in front of you tonight. So essentially, if the council adopts the resolution tonight, it starts the 30-day timeline from this evening. So that's the deadline on that. I won't say commissioner, but Mr. Jacobs' comments, since he was talking as an individual resident tonight. Yeah, we're following the process set inside of our policy. It's been discussed for years, actually, and I think it's a pretty solid policy. You're never going to have perfection, absolutely. You can always argue on value, but I think it's a pretty good policy that is certainly defendable within the scope of the law. Regarding the public process, we can always do more. I would say we had 48 people potentially assessed tonight. We had 4 property owners show up, and I think that says a lot about Kevin and everyone else here having these neighborhood meetings and being as open as possible. I had emails last night with an example from a Appaloosa Woods resident. I was emailing the same questions. How'd you get to this? And yep, here was our feasibility study. Here's the appraisal report. And she emailed this morning. Oh, yep, I got that now. I'm not going to come tonight. So yes, we can always do better, but we did have the exact appraisal report, the 30, 40-page report in the feasibility study. It's hard to get people to come to council meetings and read hundreds of pages of packets, though, so we can always do better. I do know that. So that's what I'll offer to the council.
One other point the gentleman made was about the construction vehicle traffic and damage to roads and who would have to pay for it in the future. And if,
Yeah.
my point would be was if we were to catch an individual or company damaging our road via an overweight vehicle, we would take action against that company or individual.
Correct, if we were, all likelihood,
It's
we're probably
all-
unable to do that. But as far as the road goes, there would be city maintained. If something happened, we'd patch it. We'd likely do a seal coating on years 7 and 14, call it crack filling in between there, and ultimately its useful life is hopefully, 20 plus or more years. So likely until at least 20 years, the city's responsible for maintaining that road.
And if you have traffic concerns about what's going on as far as speed and whatnot, make sure you contact our police department.
Yeah.
My wife last time, she was walking her the dog. All of a sudden, she was out walking. All of a sudden, the car comes closer, so she has to jump on the side with the dog. Otherwise, the car would have broken and taken her away.
If there are issues going forward, definitely reach out to me, reach out to anyone on the council, reach out to our police chief. We'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
happens. Unfortunately, people don't pay attention. It happens to me all the time, too.
But you have to reach out to public safety, because they have to investigate it.
Some kids sometimes are playing, or the car right closer to the kids. Unbelievable.
Hear ya.
Because they think that it's open road now with asphalt, 26 feet wide, they can go drive as they please without considering it. Especially truck drivers and others.
Okay, so, any other additional thoughts to this? Do any of the concerns raised, or are we all comfortable with where we are? Not all at once?
I will reiterate my earlier comments on the previous similar hearing.
Gotcha.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 2021-118.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Really appreciate it.
The interest now, we're gonna pay the interest. Like the other one, we're gonna take away the interest.
There's
Yeah.
no deferred assessments here.
The council just approved the assessment roll as presented, so with assessment, or with interest, as outlined in the city council packet.
Oh,
Brad can give you that info.
thanks, Brad.
Thank you. 9C, recycling proposal review.
Wonderful, thanks, Mayor and Council. In May, I came to council to talk about recycling as our contract expires at the end of the year. I posted an RFP per the direction of the council, and then sent it out to 10 providers. We only ended up with one proposer, which is Randy's Environmental Services, which is a public services provider. And it's a similar contract to what we would be utilizing right now, with a service fee of $4.50. And so here today to based on current market, with only receiving one proposal, recommending moving forward with Randy's. I did get some feedback from other providers that they weren't able to bid just due to timeline to get cans and things like that with the current logistics that are going on, but but we did receive the one proposal, and we've over the past several years been had a good working relationship with Randy's, and actually Deb Gatz, who's with Randy's and our current municipal advisor with Randy's, is actually online. She was in the audience for a bit tonight, so if you have specific questions on that, we could review that, but I'd ask council to review the proposal and give some feedback and hopefully allow us to move forward with authorizing contracts with Randy's for the next 3 years.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions for Jessica or for representative from Randy's?
I have a question.
Sure.
In light of the logistical snarls that have precluded others from bidding, is it allowable for us to consider a shorter term on the contract so we could rebid sooner?
Anything you
I
want to do?
think that would be up to council if they would want to set our RFP said that we'd be looking for 3 years, but when we go to negotiate contracts, we could look at a shorter term.
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually, because, yeah, we did say it was for a 3-year term, so I guess the contractor could say, I no longer want it if it's a shorter term, but I find that hard to believe. So I guess that's a fair point.
I'm just thinking with a 22% increase, it might be helpful
Sure.
to take allowance for the impact on the industry.
Sure. And I did reach out to Hennepin County to get some current numbers from what they're seeing for other cities in their contracts. And anyone who's gone out for bids in the last several years has seen a significant increase. Richfield is at $7 per every other week per month, so more significant increase than we have seen. But there are some other cities that have seen a slightly lower rates. It just varies on the timing of the contracts.
So I guess the concern would be if you're not locking into as long of a term, the potential increase you're going to see
Bigger?
going to be bigger, or would potential of competition if there's 3 people that are able to bid it in a year.
Yep.
It goes both ways.
Right.
Yes.
Well, if we go out with we go out for a shorter term ask, what's precluded them to come back with a higher cost?
I don't think anything necessarily would. I think it'd probably be, our staff pressure to say that, well,
I would.
yeah.
I'm the
Yeah,
only provider in town, come on.
I know, they're,
It would be Deb being a good person to work with, and she would want us to just keep the contract as she,
Has Deb been with Randy's the whole time, or is she with Republic?
since I've been here.
Deb's the only person I've ever worked with at Randy's, and when we started, the first time we ever started with Randy's billing in 2016, so I've been working with Deb my entire time here at the city.
So how many renewals have we had with Randy's?
I believe, if I recall, I think we've been using them since 2012, but I'd have to,
I think this is the second RFP. We re-upped, I think, once renegotiated without an RFP process, and this is the second time we've gone out for open
On the recycling?
on recycling.
I think before that, we certainly have,
Since
before that,
since my time.
since I would.
When
say-
recycling started is when I moved to town in
Yes.
2007. So,
Yes, in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
This would be the second RFP we've gone out for.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
can I speak about this
course.
process?
go right ahead.
For people at home, this is an unfunded mandate by Hennepin County that every city has to have recycling services. And so Hennepin County declares that every city must have it. They don't pay for it. When it comes to enforcement, they don't enforce it. When it comes to leverage to buy recycling services, they don't apply any leverage. And so it's a tax put onto our citizens by Hennepin County that we have no choice but to pass along to our citizens. And now we have a mandate with one bidder. And Hennepin County, to me, doesn't deliver anything at all. I don't think they have any leverage on us. I don't think we should have a recycling proposal, period. And until we have a reasonable expectation of having multiple bidders and getting a decent price for our citizens, I don't think we should go forward. And I think we should put a stake in the ground and say, your unfunded mandate is costing our citizens a fortune because nobody wants to recycle here in Corcoran, apparently, because we put it out to bid and we wanted 10 bids and we got 1. And it's another example of a bigger government pushing down on a smaller government as if we don't have recourse. And I think that we should just cancel it and see what they do and tell them to go pound sand. And if they want to have Corcoran have a recycling program, they can do it. It's not a city policy. It's a county policy that they're making cities do it. So they get all excited because they've got this recycling program, but they don't do anything to support it. And I'm sick of those kind of policies. And if we just get run over by everybody, and I would say the right thing to do is let Hennepin County do it. And say no. Even though I'm an advocate for recycling. I do it. But we're sticking our citizens with something that we have to have, and it's obviously with no bidders but one, it's not that good of a deal, obviously. So I would say that we actually don't do any contracts, and Randy's can come pick up any citizen who doesn't want to recycle, they can pick up their recycling cans and let Hennepin County fund it, or make action on it, or do whatever they need to do to execute their own policy.
Isn't our program, I thought our program was subsidized by some grant process or something.
We do get SCORE grant funds from, it goes from the state down to the county level. And we do get a portion of our funds, both for, we use some for cleanup day as well as to subsidize a portion of recycling. And then we do get a portion for utilization for organics. So we do get some grant funding from the county.
So how much of the grant money would affect the $4.50 per household, or is that after grants applied?
It's not formulaic. It's whatever we choose to subsidize the amount. So I guess I would say a couple of things, if I may.
Yeah,
Councilmember
absolutely.
Lima. I would say every resident in Corcoran gets to vote whether they recycle if they put their can out. And driving around.
They have to pay for it regardless.
But I guess what I'm getting at is I would get to our snowplow folks and say a lot of people recycle in Corcoran and want to recycle in Corcoran. And if that is the case, I don't think there's anyone who can do it cheaper by having one contract for 2,000 people. In addition, we're having one truck or two trucks or whatever is in Corcoran instead of tons of trucks around. So I think it's good. I think Randy's.
I'm not I'm arguing that we didn't get competition on the whole
Well,
town's
I would
RFP.
say that Randy's put forth their best effort. They assumed, we told them, Jessica handed this to 10 different companies, expecting several of them. And Randy's put together a solid proposal. Jessica talked to other cities to make sure it was within the realm, and it very much was. So I guess I look at it being as a good process. We got one, and that's what the private sector chose to do.
But that's.
Was bid or not bid. and
You're
we're left
taking,
with the
you're
private
taking a different
sector's
position.
choice.
You're going against you're taking,
I guess what I'm getting at is.
you're arguing against a position I don't have.
What I'm getting
So-
at, I guess what I'm basically getting at is that it's, we've decided as a city we're gonna recycle generally at 9:30 at night, and if we wanna direct staff to take on the staff of Corcoran, to take on Hennepin County, give me 3 more people, most of them attorneys, and we're focused on.
I'll save you time and we do nothing, and then you don't have to take them up.
I said my piece, I'm done.
I fully understand where Jeremy is coming from on going out with a shorter term and bringing up for another RFP, but my thought process is the 20% is the sunk costs. We're really looking at the 3% incremental change year over year. With that, we could be looking at going out with an RFP in 2 years' time and have another 20% jump. So I guess I would advocate, if we're gonna have recycling, we take the deal in front of us.
That's fair.
I mean, I think in the end, are we comfortable with what that number is? And it sounds like, given what other cities have been seeing that have been re-upping contracts or getting into new deals here, it's in line with that, at least.
It is only $54 a year per household, so
I think it was 31 when I moved in.
Well, we subsidize it, so it might have been a little
Yes.
higher than that.
Yeah, and we could potentially,
Can
we've
we-
been subsidizing between 10 and 8% of the cost,
Is there,
based on
is there
that.
gray area where we move grant money?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there gray area where we move the grant money if we put more grant money towards subsidizing versus organic programs
So
versus?
there's some money that can be utilized at our discretion within that outline of the program, which we use pretty much all of it for the subsidizing the recycling program. And the other organics piece has to be work towards increasing organics based on the county's requirements.
They used to not charge for organics, and now they do.
Yes, they've changed their goal, based on their sustainability goals. They've made some changes to the program. It's not, it's been incremental over time, but
I'd make a motion to authorize staff to execute a contract based on the proposal in front of us.
I'll second.
Quick one. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No, noted.
On to 9D, Planning Commission appointment process.
Mayor and council, as of now, we have 3 applicants. We're looking to appoint at the next meeting. Staff is looking for direction on how you want that appointment to take place.
Thank you. So we discussed this a little bit at a couple meetings ago. My dates are all wonky, but, and I kind of laid out my thoughts on like a long-term, a procedure that we can follow for any appointment. I know Council Schultz, you had a different take on it. I don't believe you were there, John, at that meeting.
About what?
Could be wrong, about planning commission appointment or commission appointment in general. The procedure we do with it with a subcommittee or bring it in front of the whole council or how we do that.
Subcommittee was for recommendation, right?
Correct, yep.
Yeah. I wanted to be involved with this, unfortunately, and timing, I don't have time to be involved with it before the 28th meeting, so I gotta back down from.
I'll volunteer.
But I would love to see that we have some type of organization that's just not, the burden gets passed across all council members, right?
Gotcha.
So if you and Jeremy do it this time, the next appointment is you and somebody else, or whatever. So everyone gets an opportunity to get involved with it.
Makes sense.
How many are we actually gonna,
Well,
you know that I
One.
did not like the way the last one went, so there's a cap, right?
the last.
What last
It
one?
was my
again?
biggest
That was the
issue
charter.
issue I've ever
I thought you
had.
meant planning. I was-
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So, I'm sorry, what was your question?
There's only one person we're appointing.
You're not gonna appoint all of
Oh,
them,
yeah,
right?
there's just one spot in planning, yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
I believe the planning commission size is set
set
in
in
code.
code, yeah.
it is set in city.
5 and then Parks was 7.
Yep, down 9 at one point.
Gotcha.
And there's a range defined in statute for charter. So
Yes.
We don't need to rehash.
I kind of watch that video once in a while just to.
I gotta find something else for you to do now. Can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
I really like, besides a couple of people from the planning, or from the council side, it would be nice to see the actual planning commission involved in it too,
Yes.
whether it be the chair. I think that was a
Yep.
conversation too.
And I actually shot Dean an email the other day and asked if he'd take part in whatever system we came up with, and I think he's glad to, so I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Perfect. So for this one specifically, do we just want to go down the line? How do we want to do it?
Do we get to, we'll see the candidate
Yeah, so
stuff
the
and
way
can
we've done
talk
it,
to them and.
Yeah.
yeah,
all
everyone
that
can still
beforehand.
interview and do whatever digging and background research on candidates. Then the subcommittee would make a nomination of a candidate. But it wouldn't be just the subcommittee making that appointment directly.
Yeah. But if we see their resumes and talk to them, we wouldn't be able to have a conversation with the subcommittee because that would involve more than 3 city council people. Or you could talk to one person on the subcommittee if you were a city council person. and
That would be a
is
serial meeting.
Is that
It
not
might
gonna be okay?
Might get into serious.
No, you have to limit the subcommittee to 2, so if you have a
Yes.
conversation with them, it becomes an actual meeting with,
Yeah, it'd be a quorum.
Right.
so the subcommittee, there'd be no point in anyone other than the subcommittee to look at their resumes unless you had a bone of contention at the meeting.
You could certainly debate at the meeting. We've had those
Right.
discussions before, I
Okay.
think.
You could, or go ahead.
I think your proposal was, last time, it was a set person per commission, right?
Yep.
And what I would propose is that we have a set person being a mayor and like head of the planning commission or head of the parks and trails or head of the charter commission, and then we rotate the third person off council.
Yeah.
So this time it's probably Jeremy with planning commission. Next time it's parks and trails with Dean or whatever, you know, we just go down the line.
That works for me.
Does that work?
Yes.
The one reservation I have with it is I like the original proposal to have the liaisons do it, because in observing the function of each commission and seeing the strengths and weaknesses of the members, you get a sense for what gaps might be present when somebody goes off. And it might help inform a higher quality decision versus somebody who might not be following each of the meetings. So like if I was rotated on to the parks, I don't watch all of the parks meetings. So I don't know the relative strengths and weaknesses and the dynamics of that group or what the needs are in the same way. I think it certainly makes sense for all of us to get a chance to weigh in. And I think we could also talk about what's the rotation for the liaison position so that you can get those chances more regularly. That's my 2 cents on it.
Would you be proposing maybe changing the liaison more frequently? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know how often it changes. It was set at
Yearly?
the beginning of this year. I don't know how
Well,
often.
it
Well,
could be yearly, so
yeah.
whatever we decide, right?
Appointed yearly, not necessarily changing yearly unless,
We usually have 2 or 3 new council members every couple of years, so.
right.
The new people
get the
get the commission.
Yeah, I noticed that not many people wanted to stay on there.
I'm the watershed guy,
And we do admire you for that.
The only benefit
except
about.
I hardly ever go, truth be told.
The only benefit about rotating is if you know that if you're up next on planning commission, but you're not a planning commission liaison, maybe to your point, you get involved with a few of those meetings, right? Ahead of time, so you get to develop a rapport with those people, so that we're all not stuck with, I only go to planning commission, or I only go to parks and trails. Develop a rapport with everybody on those different commissions. I guess that would be a beneficial rotation. So. But I'm not gonna live and die on this issue, so.
Want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we form a committee of 3 and rotate 1 member from the council at each new appointment.
Well, didn't you and Jeremy just do the last new appointment? So if there's a rotation, then it should go to someone else, right?
We don't have to start it now, I mean, it could.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll go, did you finish your, I might have rudely interrupted your.
I
Do you
think-
have enough there?
I think that was a motion.
Committee of
I think-
3, what?
That can change.
Mayor, head of commission, and a rotation by a member of council.
And then for this one, we'll start
We'll start with
Counselor
Jeremy.
Nichols and rotate down the line, or,
The rotation's not tied to whatever commission, it's whatever position is
it was
open.
done, yeah, so next time it'd be me and Dean for whatever commission comes up.
All right, Michelle will get that just fine, I'm sure.
I can have a conversation with her if need be.
We'll make it. We'll
Perfect.
get-
I'm gonna make it easy.
Thank you all and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good one. Okay,
I second that.
perfect. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Okay, on to
To
10,
be clear, who is the? who's-
Nichols.
I was nay.
Oh, sorry, no, for
Fatima.
who is the rotating person for this subcommittee this time?
Me and Jeremy.
All right, thank you.
Is your opposition, I want to know for my own sake, I think we can ask. Is it because you feel strongly that the person who's the liaison should be the one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, 10A, we have another public comment opportunity if there's anyone
Yep, so
here or online.
Whether Mary, Dean, or Catherine online wants to comment on the capital improvement plan for the city.
Yeah? All yours.
Please approach. You can give your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Are you citizen or commission?
Citizen. Citizen Dean Jacobs, 20415 Duffy Circle. Just one question. So as I went through this, there seems to be, okay, so there's the cost and then the resale. I'm just curious, is the resale, is that like sale to the public or is it a trade-in? I mean, maybe there's some equipment that a particular resident might be interested. I know I'm interested.
You saw some good deals, didn't you, on that resale? I did
Well, I don't
too.
know.
I know,
I mean,
I want all of it.
Well, I mean, the analysis, the report in and of itself doesn't, it doesn't allude to, you know, how many hours or how many miles are on the equipment. So you don't know, it just gives a life expectancy and it's either at that life expectancy or in some cases it's by several years over. So I don't know what is a good deal and what isn't, but I was curious, the resale is the city then, through this process, do they have to open it up for the highest bidder? Or are they simply trading it in with the dealers that they're dealing with for the replacement piece of equipment? That's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
Mayor, at this time, no one's raising their hand. You just press *9 or raise your hand. We'd recognize you, but at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Brad, do you want to address?
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, the short answer, it has to be a public sale. So for squads, oftentimes we drop them off for auction. For public works, it's usually on League of Minnesota Cities or traded in sometimes for
It
value.
varies depending on the equipment. I mean, we look to maximize the return on sale.
Or we just, you know, we
Well, for-
let Dean know that it's available too.
There you go.
So you can purchase on League of Minnesota Cities webpage or something?
You can
It's
list.
an auction?
We can list,
Okay.
as well as other
The
bidding sites.
DOT had one, I think we sold something in the DOT and got, recently, I can't remember what it was, but it was a significant deal. So we're conservative on those real sale. Either we have a quote or we're conservative. A lot of times we actually get more. It can vary, but.
Mayor and Council, let's jump in if that's
All right,
okay.
let's do
So
it.
this is the first for a few on the council here, but every even year, for quite some time, the city has gone through a 2-year capital improvement plan, or the CIP as we call it here. However, over time, the lead time for some of these items has been extremely significant. So I think this is maybe the third time now that we've actually asked for pre-orders in advance of formally approving the 2-year capital improvement plan. And Kevin and Matt can walk through the details of that, but most oftentimes it's a significant lead time. In this case, for some of the tractors and lawnmowers, there's some significant savings if we use this year's contract instead of the following year's contract, for example, with the price of metal going up. So, big picture, the items in yellow here, we're asking for pre-order. So we have 3 squads for public safety. For public works, we have a tractor, a mower tractor, a pickup truck with a snowplow, another mower, a front-end loader, and a tandem axle dump truck. And it's big numbers. We're talking about $1 million here worth of equipment. I believe, I made a note that I can't find right now, but pre-order. I will note that our 5-year financial management plan, which we used to make our projections for tax rate, assumed about a $1.9 million net cost for the 2-year cycle. As it's drafted in this format, it's 2.1. And again, we would typically come for asking for formal approval in first quarter of next year. So we still need to really kind of deal with this a little more. Resale might be better. We might say, yeah, the report said 1.9, but we need to do 2.1 based upon the needs of the community. And that'd be a decision to make in quarter 1. What we would say is if you only gave us $1 million, this is the stuff we need of the $2 million essentially. So again, Kevin's here, Matt's here, they can answer the details on this, but looking for being able to pre-order these now. We wouldn't pay for them until next year, after we issue debt, pay a mixture of debt and cash. So I guess I'll stop there and open up to questions, but most of these are taking up to a year sometimes for a lead. We actually can't even order any squads, I don't think. Right now, everything's closed up for some of the things we're acting. So we need the ability, when something opens up, we can hit an order on it too. So I'll stop there.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Mayor?
Yeah.
It's on the process itself. So when I go and buy tractors or lawn equipment, like I'm open to John Deere, Case IH. I own a Kubota even. but we only are bidding on John Deere stuff. Do you go to Case IH and get the equivalent thereof, like a 4046 Case has got like or International Harvester has something equivalent thereof? Do you go and compare? That's how I ended up with my Case IHs. They were like a lot less expensive for the same unit as a John Deere. John Deere was 6 months late too, but I don't see red in here. Is there, do you guys consider the equivalent thereof of other manufacturers?
Yeah, we're not married to any one manufacturer. We're constantly, Pat and Brandon are the guys that really extensively vet that out. So if you're curious of the really detailed process, but we evaluate all manufacturers. We continually negotiate with them. It's a balance of the relationship, the maintenance, how quick they service trucks. Like for instance, I wouldn't get hung up on the actual title, that's kind of the current one, but for instance, we might try a Western Star truck this year. That would be under this price. So, I mean, we're constantly vetting what that is, balancing market conditions. Another example is the backhoe we bought in the last cycle, we switched to a Bobcat excavator because it was cheaper. And it was the exact same piece of equipment, but because it said Bobcat versus Kubota, it was $35,000 less, just because Bobcats are known for skid steers and not backhoes.
It's good for the public to know the scrutiny.
Yeah,
and
it's
steps
extensive.
you go through too.
Extensive negotiations, extensive research. It's year-round. Matt and Ryan are the same way. It's year-round negotiation with everyone, and so it's we're not married to anyone, and it's constantly changing. And as we have more, it's probably going to be even more of a mix. Just what's the best deal at that time?
Okay.
That's a good question and a great point. So it's really same or similar we'd be looking to for the approvals for some of these too, because if we can't get some of these items, we'd want some flexibility.
Yeah, to echo that, I mean, we're forced into flexibility now, especially in the automotive market and with how limited we are on supply chain items. So we looked at, the first, what spurred this for the police department is we looked at, some of these replacement vehicles, and the window was open for 10 days for fleet orders. The next alternative was already closed and it had only been open for 18 days. The next alternative also wasn't open, and so by the time we get a turnaround, we could get a quote, and I mean, some of these vehicle manufacturers had, for their fleet orders, have condensed their windows so much because of how much the consumer market has changed and the automotive industry has changed. And, even talking with the fleet managers, asking them what to expect, and a lot of them are saying, we don't know. Things are changing faster and in ways that we didn't anticipate either. So I think this is one of the things that we're looking for, is the flexibility to also capitalize on the value where we can find it, when we can find it, because it's not a great time to find value in a lot of these areas right now.
So in that same breath, when you're talking about flexibility and not being tied to one manufacturer or whatnot, I'm assuming you guys are going out to other agencies or even like large commercial operations that may buy Mack trucks versus Western Star or whatever, and getting feedback on what their experiences were with those types of vehicles, right? Because you can get some pretty good information out of people, especially if you don't have an experience with that type of vehicle.
I can assure you it's extensive. The amount of energy and time put into researching these. And if you want to get more details, I'd be happy to arrange that meeting with the team out there that really has those relationships, and I give the credit to them. Certainly, certainly from my department, Pat and Brandon are responsible for the deals we get, and I would stand up their negotiation skills with anyone.
Yep.
Yeah. Those we said it before, but we actually use the word meister as a verb internally, like his negotiating skills, he meisters. I don't know if I was bringing anyone to car shop with me, it'd be him, and I think I'd be so embarrassed I would leave and just let him negotiate and get what he gets. I can't be that way. I can't push that hard as he pushes in these purchases. So
Nice.
He does a great job for the city.
His mindset is and philosophy is where we feel the vision of the community is, and he owns every piece that he purchases. So that's how he's making these recommendations, and I support them completely.
We're only looking at the ones in yellow, right? We're not,
Yes.
so, and the rest are just your wish list?
The rest is what we're probably gonna come to you in February for final approval. for.
Even the 2023 items?
Yes, because we issued debt, so we'd want to issue debt just once instead of twice.
Okay, so my ask of you would be in February, come with a pretty good detailed explanation why you want to spend 350,000 on a street sweeper.
Yeah.
Can I just ask one question from Matt? What's the $6,000 difference in those three squads?
That's a good question. So the 54,000 is a replacement for the 2017 squad, and we always are able to carry over some of the equipment. So what that's looking at is in that one, we're anticipating being able to reuse the cage, unless it comes out with a body style change, reuse the mobile radio, and we reuse everything we can. We usually will go about, if it's something mechanical like the prisoner cage, we'll use that as many times as we can through a rotation. For the electronics, like a light bar, we usually run about two rotations, because by the time you hit about 8 or 10 years, we try and push it further, you start to end up having equipment failures. So the difference is the one outlined at 54,000 is going to be carryover transfer equipment from the one being taken out of service. The 60,000 as a fleet addition is assuming that we're going to have additional expenses as it relates to the prisoner partition, the cage, the lights, items like that. And then same thing on the chief squad. Most of the equipment from that was taken from the previous chief squad, but also you'll find that in that one, the vehicle expense is a little bit more based on the capabilities we want it, but the equipment expense is a little bit less on it, so.
Is that a Meister move, pulling the old light bar off the top of the old cop car and putting it on the new one we just bought?
Well, it's about finding
Pretty good,
that
I like it.
balance. I mean, if we were having problems, if we had a problem light bar, we wouldn't transfer it because,
Yeah.
as we've talked about before, we run a fairly small fleet that, for us, the biggest pain is downtime. And so by keeping equipment in good repair, finding the value where we can and making sure that we maintain that sweet spot between utility, resale, and value is really where we try and land, based on a lot on experience. And to Kevin's point, I mean, not only do we, are we talking to other agencies constantly, but there's a lot of research that goes into when we're able to go to, the conferences, and they'll have, spending time with the different vendors, finding out where they're trying to cut deals and what angles they can work, and really getting the lay of the land on a lot of those, what's new and cutting edge. And we do a pretty close job of monitoring that stuff. So, and I think all the officers are passionate about what they're using for work too. So if there's a better value in what they can do, they're on it. I was already asked at least 2 or 3 times if this included a Tesla squad car, and I said, well, we're gonna find data on how it's working in Eden Prairie and the other places to find out where that value lies, if there's value there, because we take those decisions pretty seriously. So.
Do we do similar with Public Works? I know you've got on here, you've got a tractor and a mower that mounts on the tractor. Do we look at times where we need a new tractor but not the mower, and we keep the mower and remount it on a new tractor?
Yeah, we're always looking for those opportunities. In that specific case, I'd have to bring that back or get more detail in this specific one, but we're always looking for versatile pieces. A lot of these trailers are to be more versatile with seasonal workers and part-time workers. We had some historically, we didn't have as many of those in the community, so we had larger stuff, but that requires different licensures to tow them around. Now we're finding success in kind of continual seasonal workers, where it makes sense to be able to trailer some of the mowing equipment around. So we're always kind of looking for those flexibilities, and we have vision, and when do we pull the trigger? So to answer your question is yes, all of that is continually reviewed and
Okay.
with the goal of maximizing.
Any other questions or concerns? Big number, but I think that
How much of the equipment will outlast the bond that funds its purchase?
Let me go back here. So, squads are typically about 5 to 6 years. So those are the shortest ones on there. Oh, this one doesn't have the life cycle, sorry. Everything else would be roughly 10. I'm trying to think of anything that wouldn't, other than the spuds.
And some of the larger pieces are pushing 15 maybe, but I think I think with the resale value and the state pricing that we get, it's.
I think the answer is the 3 squads.
Okay.
But I will follow up on that. I can look it up now, actually. Give me a second.
The pricing we get on this stuff, I would kill for it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Definitely.
And it's crazy, if you break out like the use of a Bobcat, we get it for X amount, and in 2 years, we get a new one. And during that 2 years, we pay like $1,500 to use it. We get a brand new one in 2 years, and it costs $900 for a new set of tires, and oil changes $200. So like the carrying costs of skid steer for the town because of the deals we get is crazy low. And I don't know if, so I'm making those numbers up, but it's something that I don't come anywhere near that, and I do a lot of looking around for deals too. So the buying strategies, when I've investigated them, and you should too, because you're kind of that way, look at the cost structure of the things we get, and you'll be as impressed as I was. And when I say that way, I'm also pointing the finger at me too.
That was a compliment.
My only thought there was, certainly it makes sense to me to take on debt for things that'll last as long as debt does, but it kind of inflates the cost of things that are retired sooner, because then you're continuing to escalate the cost over life that the item doesn't actually possess. Not that we shouldn't do it in this case, but should we be working toward a point where we're funding that out of general fund instead?
Correct, so there is potentially one. So in here we have the 3/4 ton. As you can see, we say it has a 7-year life, but the one we bought in 2011, so we're keeping it for 10 at this point. But to your point, that's exactly why I've been allocating more and more cash. So with this 2-year budget cycle, I think we'll have 600,000 cash with the rest debt issuance. So, I mean, you could certainly say that first 600,000 pays for all the things that, but you're exactly right. That's why we're trying to get there. And then this year's proposed levy for next year, it increases our annual allotment by $100,000 in cash to our CIP. And it's still nowhere near as big. I think we had $0 per year when I got here allocated to the CIP, and we're at $350,000 a year next year. It's just been a slow slog.
We're also gonna find that these timelines are gonna shrink because we're gonna use the equipment more and buy more equipment and all of those things. The lifespan on a green tractor as opposed to a red or an orange or a blue is all different. They all have different qualities and stuff, but we're gonna be using a lot more of this equipment, a lot more as we grow as a city. But again, the capital improvement process and stuff helps us cycle those properly and keep our costs down on maintenance and those kind of things, so.
I assume like the
Great
snow
job.
plows and things are, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
We've got enough snow plows for all the roads we expect to be finished and taken on in the next couple of years. Is that factored into the planning?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, the front end loader with snowplow here is specific for some of the new neighborhoods with the cul-de-sacs. I don't know, 3-4 years ago, we got a smaller one. And then as we continue to grow more, and now we're gonna use that, but we're also gonna, we think there's some advantage to front end loader with the plow. So I mean, we've ordered a lot of dump trucks lately. We didn't have a spare dump truck when I got here in case one broke down. So we're building that redundancy, but yes.
We do
the
a
question
spare
is
last
each-
year.
A Tavera development, a 500 home development, that's a plow route when it's fully built out, or nearly a plow route. So, yes, we're building those as we go and looking to get versatile equipment that can be used in multiple areas and in multiple seasons.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
He keeps asking me to put plows on the squad cars.
And real quick, I didn't answer, I think it was Councilmember Schultz very good, but, you know, this cat grader that's on here, they love it, no problems. We're not, the recommendation is to rebuild it at 50,000 versus a $250,000 piece of equipment. So that just speaks to when they feel like they don't have the value in purchasing new equipment, they come back and say, let's rebuild it, we don't have any problems with this equipment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just for the people listening, that's a good example of analyzing each piece of equipment specifically and seeing if the value is there before we ask. And it's a huge number, and we recognize that the community is watching and seeing that, and it's very seriously considered.
Good deal. We're all good?
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
definitely.
Good work.
Thank you very much.
You need a motion?
Yep, I'll make the motion to authorize staff to pre-order the 2022 capital improvement plan purchases as outlined in the report.
Second.
Any further?
Does it, you said capital, or the 2022 capital, does he need to reference 2022, 2023?
Actually, no, it'd just be the pre-order 2022 purchases. So not even all of the 22 would be the pre-order.
Did I not say pre-order?
You might have.
Oh.
I don't know.
I meant pre-order if I didn't.
I'll second with that
Perfect.
change or amendment, whatever word you're
Sounds
looking.
good. Any further discussion?
So will the budget will there need to be any updates to the budget we're going to consider in November or December in light of the 2.1 versus the 1.9?
No.
Okay.
No, it would be a future, so our bond would likely be if we stayed $200,000 higher over 10 years, the future bond payments beginning in 2023 would potentially be slightly larger.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Alrighty,
Thank you.
thank you. City council schedule, you wanna have a, besides busy?
Action updates first, or no?
But yeah, that's what I meant. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, just like, I'd like to keep you updated kind of quarterly on where we're making progress, so just no requirements here, just keeping you updated what's going on.
Sounds good. Anything else anyone wants to bring up?
Thank you for that, Brad.
I had a couple questions, if that's okay. Under the second core strategy, there was a note, we were hoping to complete a county road trail corridor feasibility study, but Hennepin County didn't come through with the funding for that. Where does that currently stand? Is that something that we should be planning to do ourselves, or continue to press them next year? What's the next step in resolving that need?
I don't know. I'm convinced that they need to be a part of this and help fund that. These trails are on their plan as well as ours. They're on county roads. So my tendency is to swing again next year and see if we can get some assistance. That's where I'm at currently. Also, with just the amount of work that we're doing right now, taking another potential feasibility study is just pretty difficult at this point. But my tendency is to push it a year and swing again. I don't know.
Can I ask a question related to that?
Yeah.
So, is that a bike trail or walking trail, multi-use trail?
It would be if you picture County Road 101 in Medina, it's along the roads, we call them on road, but it's actually a
Yeah.
buffer typically, and then a 10-foot or 8-foot bituminous alongside.
So, is there coordination between Three Rivers? Because Three Rivers has had conversations around east-west trails through Corcoran too, and I'm just asking the question if part of that feasibility question not only is for Hennepin, but also Three Rivers.
I don't believe so, just specifically because they identify off-road trails for their
Okay.
priorities. Now, we also have identified off-road trails, so that's one where it'd be maybe a separate, if we're looking at feasibility studies for our off-road trails, we'd want to engage Three Rivers for those. So the ones that follow the county roads, unless they've identified it in their plans, which I don't believe there's any more plans for Three Rivers following roads through Corcoran. So County Road 19 was kind of an anomaly that way.
So maybe next year, we have to remember that in addition to the on-roads, we consider off-roads if this is a goal that was left unfulfilled. Maybe we also think about on and off-roads. Who's in charge of remembering that for next year?
We better plan a committee to think about it.
That's a good point, though. I mean, if Hennepin County is distracted, and we can't rely on them because of all the other responsibilities they have, maybe a better partner would be Three Rivers to focus on the off-road stuff that we would also value. I don't think it's necessarily vital that our next trail series be on county roads.
And I don't know if they would be against, yeah, depends on your definition of off-roads. Like, is a little bit off 30 off-roads? I don't know.
It's worth having the conversation.
With all the wetlands, it's hard to go across portions of our town without at least butting up to the roads at some point. I don't know.
Because the goal was a better trail connection system. We can go other routes if we can't go through the county to accomplish that better.
Agreed.
Deal.
Sorry, Dean, go ahead.
No, I'm just arguing with myself. Shouldn't Parks and Trails be under that group? And they deal with that and recommend to us what's
Yeah.
needed and such? Is that what we're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean,
or-
essentially, it took 2 years while we updated the comp plan and reaffirmed all these
Okay.
trails, so it's really implementation now. If we gave Parks and Trails, $1 million, I'm sure they'd take it on.
It's all associated with where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
Thank you.
At this point.
Thanks.
Yeah, and that's the goal of the feasibility study, was actually to really identify what the cost of some corridors were. We can take a guess, a linear foot guess. Kevin and his team's good at that, but until you're in there with small utilities, right-of-way, potential right-of-way acquisition, wetlands, it really would help you identify what corridor
Yeah.
costs are more specifically.
Because we do have, I'm remembering like 800K in park dedication funds currently, with more planned to be coming in as things plat, right? So
Sounds right.
at what point do we have enough that we start doing a project or two a year?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. There's competing resources certainly, though. There will be in Bellwether, there's the park to develop up there. There's potentially maybe a town center park, the linear park down here with St. Therese coming in. Tavera is scheduled to have a park at some point. Yeah, so it's purely the allocation. And through our comp plan update, I mean, I think Parks and Trails, and I think Trails specifically, were just one of the highest comments and desires from our residents.
Yeah.
Trails, trails, trails.
So Jeremy, if you imagine our 800,000, and when I've talked to Three Rivers, they said to me, why don't you use our money to build trails? And so if we can have our 800 be multiplicative
Yeah, absolutely.
with other people's money, then
Get some more.
it's, 'cause usually they involve some input from us to do some of their stuff, so. And the time to build trails is before the acres are super expensive, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you brought it up.
But we do have those numbers baked into our park dedication amount as well. So, for example, in Tavera, you got 500 homes that, there's some park dedication, but call it even 450 homes at 4,000 apiece. That's gonna bring in a number of dollars too.
Sounds. Okay. If there's genuinely nothing else anymore, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
We
maybe
didn't do
not.
We
12.
were talking.
I'm
do
sorry,
12.
did we skip some? I thought
You're
I did.
anxious, aren't you?
Well,
Is there something
I
you
have
wanted to add?
A little bit. I lost my front page now.
No, it just was, those action steps, and just the schedule is the only thing remaining, unless you
Oh.
get unless the council had more questions on the action steps update.
If I could, just real
Absolutely.
quick,
Absolutely.
Jeremy has told me we kind of had 3 goals on the council at the beginning of the year, one of them being concern that the planning commission had brought up about PUDs, CUPs, those kind of things coming to us. And I just want to, the question I have, and I've been kind of chewing on since Tuesday night's meeting, is, the statement was made based off of what we were talking about, and that was changing in our ordinances and stuff. Essentially, a church, a school, a meeting place, no matter where it goes in this city, is gonna always have to come to the planning commission and council as either a conditional use permit or your PUD, even though it's written into our ordinances on where things can go. Is there a way we can simplify that? Is there a way we can prevent everything coming to the planning commission and the council? I don't remember the last thing that came to the planning commission that wasn't a PUD or a conditional use permit and such. Is there discretion from our planning side of our business or our staff that says yes or no, this is not our intent, it is not our envision, and we can stop spending time and money on every little thing? Am I trying to make it too simplified? Am I bringing up things that I shouldn't bring up?
I think we've been working on this as a big, huge, continual progress, or, we've been working on it all year. Exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. And I think to a certain extent, Jeremy has written code and you've written code and we've talked about it. I mean, that's an ongoing discussion.
And it was in front of planning commission this week, wasn't it?
Correct, and then the urban conservation ordinance is coming back for a work session coming up. So yeah, these are gigantic topics that we're slogging through, essentially.
So just keep grinding.
Yeah.
Is what we're gonna do.
Government
Okay.
in action. Grind, grind, grind. Yes.
I think that's what I wanted to say.
Gonna
It
do it
just-
until we
it-
get it wrong.
I just, if I need to apologize, I will about the Trevera stuff, but I just have seen the comments made by the public is we just seem to roll over to a lot of these developers and those kind of things and just make things work and figure it out, blah, blah, blah. That blatant disrespect that I saw in this, I'm not going to roll over, I'm not gonna do, and I think coming up with, we gotta fix this before we give you, if that's our only recourse, is we gotta get this fixed before we allow permits. We've got to take charge of what we're doing in our city more. And I don't know the way it's been in the past, but I just, if I need to adjust my ways, please let me know. I can't do this to our existing neighbors, landowners in Corcoran. It's just not right, so,
We'll let you know.
thanks.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, guys.
Can we get a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Good point.
And Mary gets some sort of
Mary,
awards or
last